But like the whole jihad replaced the flag of the United States with the rainbow in the course of 40 years with less than 3% of the population.
This is Christian nationalist Joel Webbin in conversation with the guy on the far left here. This is Dusty Devers. He is a senator for Oklahoma. And this is Joel Webbin talking about the jihad that he believes is being waged by the LGBT community, apparently. Then we've got Doug Wilson. All these people are Christian nationalists, all of them. Then these guys run a podcast, I think, the King's Hall or something. Anyway, they had some psychotic stuff to say. That was just a sample. That's not even the craziest thing. So I wanted to listen to what they had to say here. By the way, this was from a panel titled Biblical Patriarchy and Christian Nationalism, something like that. I just want to listen for a second to what these people had to say in this absolutely unglued panel. And by the way, if you want to see the whole thing, I covered the entire panel beginning to end on my unfiltered YouTube channel, Owen Unfiltered. I live streamed there, but I uploaded it after the fact too. But just listen to what they say here. Oh, and before we continue on, in the comments, tell me, since he's talking about the homo jihad, tell me, who is your favorite homo? Mine is Homo heidelbergensis. Homo habilis is pretty good. A lot of people like Homo erectus. And some people prefer Elton John. Tell me in the comments, which one is your favorite? All right, let's listen to what these guys said here.
When we saw churches closing for long periods, we saw people, with this love your neighbor propaganda.
Love your neighbor propaganda. Are you hearing this? Love your neighbor propaganda. A pastor and a senator, unironically, just said that.
That was really submit to your neighbor and not submit to God, submit to the powers that be. And a lot of us were saying the powers that be don't have jurisdiction.
That is absolutely psychotic. Well, bro, I'm sorry, you're wrong. The powers that be do have jurisdiction because you live under a federal government and a state government, and they have full jurisdiction over you.
Illegitimate. And why have we been bowing to these powers that are just pseudo? It's our fault. It's the fault of pastors for not telling us better. And if you don't have strong pastors that are preaching the authority of God from the scriptures and teaching their people that the authority lies in the scriptures and not in the culture or in your leaders, but it's in the scriptures, and we all have to bow to the same standard, then the pews are going to establish the culture, and the culture then establishes your law, because power arises from the people.
What he's describing right now is something called theonomy. I had to look this up, but it differs from theocracy in a couple of key ways, but let me just draw it out for you, okay? This is a conversation on Christian nationalism that they had here. A theocracy can be modeled by Iran, for example. Iran has a religious leader as its head. That is the very top of government. It is a religious government. That is a theocracy. But a theonomy is one where pastors are writing the laws. They don't have a religious structure. They have a normal political structure, like, with the Constitution and everything. But all of the politicians are pastors. And all the politicians get their laws and ideas and everything from other pastors and from, their interpretations of the Bible and stuff. That's a theonomy. Theonomy and Christian nationalism differ, according to these guys, in one specific way, really. In their mind, at least, Christian nationalism is a hostile takeover of the government by Christian nationalist actors who step into the role of government and impose their will upon everybody and force everyone to follow their morality, their interpretation of whatever. They are Christian nationalists, these guys are. Theonomy is where it goes from the bottom up instead of from the top down. So theonomists want to they want to have a big wave of a revival across the country, and that's what's going to lead to a theocratic or a Christian nation, basically. That's how they view the difference between theonomy and Christian nationalism. Quick interjection, this won't take long, I promise. I'd appreciate it if you watched to the end of the video, or at least a couple extra seconds, because YouTube bases its algorithm off of watch time. The more watch time a video has, the further the video will go. Also, take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I'm selling my book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, 400 pages, and my second book, 100 Questions for Jehovah's Witnesses, which is about 80 pages. And you can find them both there on the website. Audio form, ebook form, whatever. It's about my experiences within the religion and the history of the religion generally. The 100 questions are intended to challenge a religious leader, so I'd appreciate it if you give it a read. Okay, back to the video. But just to really drive the point home, I don't want there to be any confusion here. These guys are full-blown extremists who intend to take over the country in the name of a dictatorship. By the way, this is called Live Panel on Biblical Patriarchy and Christian Nationalism. This is another clip of Joel Webb, and I covered him not too long ago, so this clip may look familiar to you, but I just want to establish that these people really do believe that they have the authority, the right, and the responsibility to take over the U.S. government in the name of Jesus.
God appoints some kind of ruler who is unapologetically Christian.
And who determines who God appoints? Well, he does, of course.
And he comes in with a sword and says, I'm sorry, but lawlessness and wickedness will not be tolerated anymore.
And what is lawlessness and wickedness in his mind? Being gay, being atheist, being Muslim, being trans, being any number of minority groups criminalized.
And he doesn't force conversions, just for the record, because that's another one of the objections that's just ill-founded. He doesn't.
Okay. Well, that's good news. You're not going to force anybody to convert. Go on.
He doesn't go around forcing conversions, but instead what he does is he forces external morality.
Okay, that's what I had a problem with in the first place.
He doesn't force a change of heart. Only the gospel can do that.
Didn't expect him to.
But what a king can do is he can say, whether you're regenerate or not, you're going to pretend.
That is what my problem was from the start. He's describing what he wants to see play out. He's describing a Christian nationalist state, a dictator coming in and forcing people to be Christian. You're going to pretend if you don't believe it.
You're going to pretend. You're at least going to pretend to be Christian. They're not free thinkers. They're not courageous.
Talking about men here.
They're not intelligent. They're men. And men must be governed. And if they must be governed, then our prayer as Christians is that they would be governed in the right direction, at least, for the good of the church.
What a wild thing to say. Anyway, that's who we're dealing with here. Full-blown Christian nationalists who intend to take over the government and are actually in positions of power where they have some kind of sway, a little bit of sway. I mean, Dusty Devers on the left here is a senator in Oklahoma.
And what we ended up with was just a whole bunch of people who were willing to be led by weak leaders. And I think by God's grace, the sloth says, or the sluggard says, there's a lion in the streets, we'll all be killed. And instead of saying, oh no, there's a lion in the streets, I think God's raising up a bunch of men that say, let's go get the lion, boys!
Who's the lion in this equation? I guess non-Christians? Non-Christian nationalists?
Let's go get the lion, boys! Let's go kill him! And that's the point.
Okay. Thanks for just laying it out for me so I don't have to read between the lines. That's actually appreciated.
If there's a lion, then let's go. If there's not, then we just proved you wrong.
Proved you wrong on what? What the hell is he even talking about right now? Jesus Christ, dude. These people need help immediately. Dusty Devers, as a senator, actually kind of lays it on the line and explains his whole plan in the next clip. Listen to this one. Quick interjection. This won't take long, I promise. I just want to say I'd appreciate it if you check my Patreon. owenmorgan.com/Patreon to find it. YouTube's algorithm goes up and down, so I can never predict where it's going to be. Having patrons gives me some level of stability. Okay, back to the video.
So I didn't catch any of the Ali Beth Stuckey trad wife
Yeah, they played a clip at the beginning of the panel about Allie Beth Stuckey. I didn't see it either.
Any of the Allie Beth Stuckey trad wife conversation because I was out legislating morality.
And about time.
That'll do. That'll do. Speaking of no-fault divorce.
Jesus, dude.
Hey.
Yeah. I'm not going to make any further comment on that issue. I'd rather talk about abolishing pornography or abolishing abortion, not smashing it.
Not smashing it. I don't know what that means, but he said it. He was right out there in the open about it, legislating morality. That is specifically and explicitly oppositional to what the founding fathers intended. They did not want morality to be legislated because they knew that there were people of all different backgrounds and creeds and races and everything that lived in the United States or were going to live in the United States, ideally, in the future. The state is only there to protect your rights to life or your right to speech without being, imprisoned, or your right to any religion that you want or no religion at all, or freedom of the press, freedom from unreasonable search and seizure, so on and so forth. The state's there to protect those rights, and that is it. We've agreed on certain rights, certain baseline things that everybody should have. And you are allowed to do whatever you want outside of that stuff, but the moment you violate somebody else's rights, you're not exercising yours anymore. You are taking someone else's away. Your right to swing your fist ends at the tip of my nose. You have the right to do whatever you want, swing your fist wherever, until it reaches my nose. Then it's not you exercising your rights, it's you violating my rights. That's the idea. And Dusty Devers just shot that to shit. He doesn't care. Says he's out there legislating morality. Is literally exactly what people didn't want when they created the Constitution. That's why he used that phrase. That's insane. Next, they're going to talk about the definition of Christian nationalism. Check this out.
Is Christian nationalism just a modern phrase for theonomy, or are there actually some distinctions? If so, what are they?
This is a particularly funny clip to me because one of the foremost propagandists for the Christian nationalist movement, David Barton and his son Tim Barton, and Rick Green and some others, part of the propaganda that they lay down is, what is a Christian nationalist? Nobody can define it. Nobody knows what a Christian nationalist is or what it means. In fact, I just covered a clip about this like the other day.
And he's tackling the issue of Christian nationalism. I think we might actually today find out what it means. I've been wondering. It's like, if I make up words, do I get to make up the definition?
I love that, they just, this whole time, they've been pretending that there is no definition. It's a pretend made-up term. And these people are coming out and they're saying, no, we've been Christian nationalists for a while. They're not even trying to hide it.
Make up the definition? I mean, that's kind of what the left has done. And I think Mark's going to take it on.
Yeah, he will take it on for sure, because we've talked about this. He and I have had some conversations. But this is an issue that we know it's a big deal because all the left is saying it at the same time. They started...
the left isn't saying it. I mean, sure, yeah, the left is saying it, I guess. It's the right. It's them that are saying it, okay? This is not, hidden. This is pretty out in the open.
Is Christian nationalism just a modern phrase for theonomy, or are there actually some distinctions? If so, what are they?
The Venn diagrams, it's not circles that map onto each other perfectly, but there are a lot of things that everybody who loves God, loves his word, wants to see. And I think we would be very pleased with most of it. Compared to what we're dealing with now, which is just ungodliness and anarchy on stilts, we are tumbling headlong into the abyss. I would take a theonomist. I would take a Christian nationalist of Stephen's stripe. I'd be delighted with any of them.
Stephen Wolf's who's referring to. I'm not sure who it is.
The CN guys that I talk to offline, they seem very
Christian nationalist CN.
Offline, they seem very comfortable with a slim minority getting it done.
Dictator. This is what that means. I showed the clip a minute ago. slim minority taking it over, a dictatorship.
True.
At least initially. You know this crew much more than I do. You've been around the block. The theonomists. I'm thinking the theonomists of old. I'm thinking of Bonson. I'm thinking, were they as comfortable as some of the CN young bucks with a minority approach?
With a dictatorship.
With a minority approach of it's top down first that leads them to bottom up?
I believe the old guard theonomists and their heirs would think that a top-down Christian prince would be a good thing. They
Christian prince.
would applaud it, but they would have they wouldn't have high hopes for the long run, because they would say this is great, but going back to what you said, we need the hearts of the people.
That is psychotic. So theonomists, in their definition, want to create a Christian state by convincing everybody that, you know, Jesus is real and he's going to kill you if you don't. Blah, blah, blah. And Christian nationalists want to create a dictatorship. That is wild. It's wild how open they are about this. Like, they're just saying it. They don't even care. Like, the mask is off. We listen to people like David Barton and Rick Green and Tim Barton, the three on screen here, talk all day about how no one knows what it means. Oh, this is a brand new term. First time it's ever been used in history. And then you flip over to these people and they're just like, yeah, this has existed for like ever. That is insane. Here's the jihad clip right here, though. Check this one out.
I've noticed is some of the theonomists are less comfortable where the CN, some of the younger guys are. They're comfortable with bottom up, but also top down. Like,
okay,
they would say something, and I would say this too, but they would say, you know, but like the homo jihad replaced the flag of the United States with the rainbow in the course of 40 years with less than 3% of the population.
No. That did not happen, okay? The U.S. flag has not been replaced with the rainbow flag. And also, it's not a jihad. Like, what the hell is he talking about? He's literally talking about a religious takeover of a country, a religious, violent, hostile takeover. If that is not jihad, the way that they interpret it, I don't know what is. What are you talking about? The homo jihad. What do you mean by that? If not, he's saying he wants to do that. The rainbow flag has not replaced the Christian flag. I'm sorry, the American flag. The American flag is still flown in courthouses and, you know, at the White House and everywhere else, embassies and everything else. There might be a rainbow flag somewhere nearby, but, you know, military camps are not blowing a bugle while raising a rainbow flag. That's not happening every morning at 5 a.m. You live in a fantasy. I love the term homo jihad, though. I'm a fan, actually. We should get that started.
Less than 3% of the population. So why are Christians not allowed to do that again? That, you know,
I love how he sets the bar. He says, this group did this absolutely terrible thing in this short amount of time. It's disgusting. It's evil. It's wrong. They shouldn't have done that. So why can't we do that again? You just said it was wrong. Is it wrong or not? Why are you setting the bar way down here and then saying, I'm going to match that? Are you kidding? It's like when I hear Israel say that Hamas is using human shields, so we have to use human shields, like it's a justification or something. No. If you identify something as wrong, you shouldn't do that thing, right?
that a lot of political change and when we understand that the law is a tutor. So we're not saying that that's going to save anybody, but the law does function as a tutor, and in a lawful country, there is more of an awareness, in the first use of the law, more of an awareness of, oh, I'm a sinner, I need a savior, and it works as that black velvet backdrop for the brilliance of the diamond for those gospel preachers now to preach a gospel that maybe falls on less deaf ears, and so I feel like, yeah, Lord, I'm gonna pray for revival, but I'm also gonna work towards if we don't have the numbers, that we still that we could have a few high caliber men called by God that would work into positions of civil leadership and do what's right, even if we're the minority. And maybe that shapes it. Could be
even if we're in the minority, I'm going to try to finagle people into positions of power, just a few, to commit a coup, like a military coup against the U.S. government to impose my beliefs erase the Constitution and replace the president with a Christian nationalist dictator. That's what he's saying right now.
Could be power from a minority that paves the way for gospel preaching and revival. Or it could be revival. What do you guys
Yeah,
think?
this is very true.
So he's saying he'll take either. I want to be a theonomist, spread revival, but I also want to get somebody into a position of authority at the top who will become a dictator. Wow, dude.
If we got a King Josiah,
King Josiah was what they're describing as a Christian nationalist, I believe. He imposed his will on everybody and forced them to be Christian, pretend to be Christian, if nothing else, like they're saying here.
Josiah, I would take it.
If we got a King Josiah, I'd take it. That is absolutely insane. Absolutely insane.
Laws don't just result from the culture of a people. Laws then turn around and shape the culture of the people.
Right.
That's true.
So there is a very real sense in which culture is downstream from worship.
What they're talking about is called the Overton window. It's a window of acceptable public discourse. It's not acceptable to be a communist in society today. Communism hasn't been accepted. It's not acceptable discourse, and it hasn't been for like decades and decades, if ever, in the United States. Socialism is not acceptable discourse in society. Although it's getting there, socialism is. That's the Overton window. What is it okay to talk about in society? Like, where are the laws moving right now? And on the right, I'm trying to think of some area that is kind of off limits for the right. Eugenics is off limits for the right. Nobody on the right talks about, well, I mean, they do. They talk about, eugenics, but not openly, and they aren't trying to pass bills and stuff for it. Right? That's the Overton window. So what he's saying is the laws reflect society, and society reflects the laws. That's true.
Then turn around and shape the culture of the people.
Right.
So there is a very real sense in which culture is downstream from worship, but part of our worship produces a legal system that then continues to disciple and radicalize people further and further.
You catch what he just said? Part of our worship is to, what was it?
Downstream from worship, but part of our worship produces a legal system.
Part of our worship produces a legal system. Remember all that your right to swing your fist ends at the tip of my nose stuff? You are not allowed to sacrifice a 12-year-old boy every day at noon to a sun god. You know why? Even if that kid consented to it. Hell, say a 30-year-old man. Even if a 30-year-old man consented to it every single day, you're not allowed to, because that's a violation of people's rights, because murder is unacceptable. The United States operates in such a way that it's unacceptable to impose your beliefs and will and ideals on other people against their will. But it's part of his worship. So it has to be okay, right? I don't care if it's part of your worship. It's unacceptable.
But part of our worship produces a legal system that then continues to disciple and radicalize people further and further. So you can take something like no-fault divorce. It didn't just capture, well, we have this new idea about marriage and divorce. It then turned around and discipled people about what is marriage all about? What is the nature of happiness in marriage? What is a successful marriage? Is marriage a permanent thing at all? So law has a didactic value, and that's part of the top-down conversation, is that 3% gets a Dusty Devers elected, and then Dusty gets signal boosted by all the leftists that hate him, and they end up accidentally discipling a couple thousand more people every time they do that to agree with you.
Yeah, that's not actually how it works. He's saying that every time somebody talks about this guy negatively or positively, it's giving him breath. And that's true, but populist movements like this get breath on their own. In World War II, there were no social media websites. There was no YouTube signal boosting Hitler. He was specifically and intentionally forcing his way into the system, as these people are. So they're getting breath anyway, whether I talk about him or not. It's better that I make people aware of this stuff before he comes in and poisons the well.
have to be very clear that we're not just here to write laws. We're writing laws that are orienting us to the lawgiver, but we can only rightly orient ourselves to the lawgiver not by external law, but by the internal submission to the lawgiver and trust in him and receiving his grace, receiving the Lord Jesus, and then living our lives in accordance with him. The external law should match the internal law of the heart so that the conscience and the law of the land are in union. They're in unity.
So that's pretty clear, right? I don't know how it could be clearer than that. They want a Christian nationalist state. They want to impose Christianity on people, whether they believe it or not. It's irrelevant. They want to force you to pretend, at least pretend, to be a Christian. I didn't include this clip in the compilation, but there's another portion of this where they discuss denominations. I think that Dusty Devers on the left, the senator, is Southern Baptist, and some of these other guys are like Presbyterian. And Dusty made a big deal out of the fact that denominations matter, and he isn't going to capitulate to Presbyterians. You will be his denomination of Christian. And some of the other guys on stage kind of argued with it. I thought that was fascinating. Anyway, tell me what you think about it in the comments. This is wild.